Go for it.
All right, so welcome to the Peterborough Town Library. This is the internet security kind of walkthrough. This is going to, every time I do this class, or every time we do this class, I feel kind of bad because it makes me sound like a conspiracy nut. So just be aware of that. Basically, the short answer is everything online is a threat. If you're connected to the internet, you might as well give up now. Is kind of the message you're going to get in this class. We're just hoping to make it so that you're less likely to be targeted than someone else. The joke I like to say is two men are walking in the woods and they see a bear. One man bends down and starts tightening his shoelaces, and the other man turns to him and says, "That's dumb. You can't outrun a bear." And the guy who's tying his shoelaces stands up and said, "That's true. I don't have to outrun the bear. I just have to outrun you." So basically, one of the things to remember throughout this entire process is people who write viruses, scammers, phishers, all those people, unless they're specifically targeting an individual or business, they're kind of going for the low-hanging fruit. So as long as you're just slightly more difficult to get than someone else, you're in a pretty good spot. Because if they send out, 1 million spam emails and only 1,000 respond, they're still happy because they got 1,000 people. They're not going to spend, 3 times the amount of time trying to get the rest of the people whenever they already have a large group that they got. So just be a little bit better. Figured I'd say a couple words about myself. I've been working in a computer-related field starting in college. I was in the IT department at college. So for 15 years, I did grow up in Peterborough. So some of you may recognize my last name. And I went to college in Southwest Pennsylvania. So that's where all of my sports teams are. In case you wanna throw down about how the Penguins are, not that great this year or something to that effect. All right, so internet security, Peterborough Town Library. As always, if you have any questions during the class, you can let Mary know, or you can raise your hand in the Zoom call, or you can type it in the chat box, and then we will stop and, whenever it's a good time, and we'll go over those questions. If you have any questions after you leave, which is honestly when I have the best questions, as soon as I can no longer ask them, feel free to email Mary, and she will either be able to answer you or she will get in touch with me, and then we'll work on the answer together. The other thing to note is you will be getting an email link with a copy of both the slides and the video presentation. So the benefit of this is, at least for me, whenever I'm learning, I like to just kind of be there and listen. And then afterwards, I always find it useful to have a slide to go back to kind of rejigger my memory with what it is that I learned. And if you have any questions after the class, of course, email Mary. And if it's a good question, not saying that not all questions are good, but if it's a good question that I think would add to the presentation, I will add it into the presentation, create a slide, and then everyone else who views the presentation will have access to that question and the answer. The other thing to note is if you don't take this class for a couple of years, or if you're looking back in 6 months, some of the slides may be changed. That's because I do continually update these with new information. So this slide presentation will be theoretically as useful today as it is in 2 years from now. So feel free to go back and take a look in the future.
And let me interrupt for a second, Tim. You're a little loud in the classroom. Can you turn your volume down just a hair?
Sure. How's that?
Better? We'll do. It will do.
All right. I did used to manage a gun range, so I'm used to speaking very loudly. Don't worry, not the one in Peterborough. All right, so this is a quick agenda. I could honestly talk about this the entire topic for hours, if not days. So we will skip through certain sections, and then at the end, you can definitely ask me to go back over something, because some of the information in the slides is more for you to look at, and I'll explain it very little. So the agenda is an introduction, must do. So these are things that you definitely should be doing. Should do, these are things that you should be doing. Nice to do, and these are things that are like, the cherry on top of you being secure online. And then at the end, we'll have questions. I used to go over this, but basically this is an example, a very extremely well documented example of a network security breach by a company. So at the end, if you want more information about this, I'll go over it. But basically, it's a slide to show you that while you're a target, also any company you work for is also probably going to be, you're going to be targeted through that company in order to gain access to that company. In this example, this company lost $10 billion from this attack that was in 2017, and it was caused by a single computer in a branch office. So be vigilant. So this is just a quick slide on the distribution of attacks in 2022. A lot of people like to say, myself kind of included, that Macs are more secure than Windows computers. And while this is, you can argue one way or another if Macs are more secure or if Windows computers are more secure. The main reason why Macs have this perception of being more secure is just the amount of attacks that are written for that program. I know the slide may be a little bit difficult to read the numbers, but basically in 2021, there was 116 million pieces of malware developed for the Windows platform. For 2021, there were 16,751 malware things developed for Mac OS. So it's a lot easier to be secure whenever less people are writing things to target your operating system. So that's kind of an example of how Macs are technically, sure, more secure, but that's just because less people are attacking them. The other graph on the right is total malware, and I like to show this one just to show you that it's increasing. So more attacks are happening. It's becoming more prevalent as the years go by. Behavior vulnerabilities. So these are things that you do that make you susceptible. Some of these are general security, and some of these are more internet security. So the examples of bad behavior are if you're on a computer forgetting to log off. So basically what can happen is if you're in a coffee shop and you step away for a moment and you just leave your computer sitting there open, you probably have a lot of things auto-saved in Google or in Edge or in Firefox, so someone can go to your bank, just pull up, whatever bank you use, TD Bank, and everything will be auto-completed, and they'll have access to your banking information. So that's an example of forgetting to log off being a bad thing. Poor password management. You'll hear this a lot, but basically the number one thing you can do to be secure online is have good passwords. So this means that your password shouldn't be, your favorite flavor of ice cream plus the year, or it shouldn't be your favorite, sports team and your birth date, because these are easy to guess and also easy for a computer to guess. Failure to create backups. This is more of a general thing. So a backup is important, especially when dealing with ransomware. So basically you want the ability to say, if my computer dies, do I have all of my information on that computer backed up and saved? You don't want to lose your computer and then also lose all of the information that was on that computer. That's kind of a double whammy, and it is thousands and thousands of dollars to get your data digitally reconstructed by a company to get it back. So priceless pictures, that kind of thing, make sure those are backed up. The next one is failure to check and apply system and firmware updates. So basically, whenever you are using a Windows computer or a Mac computer, in a Windows computer on the bottom right-hand side of the screen, a little thing will pop up saying, hey, your computer has updates, please restart to apply them. Basically, all this is saying is please do that. And on a Mac, it will be in the top right-hand corner. A lot of attacks are patched by the respective operating systems themselves. So if you just are up to date and you restart your computer to apply those updates, you restart your phone to apply those updates, that means you'll be much more secure than people who don't do that. The other thing to note is one of the reasons why I'm a big fan of iPhones versus Android phones is iPhones generally get about 6 years of security updates, and Android phones get anywhere from no security updates to, I think the longest I saw was 4 years of security updates. That means your phone may physically still be usable, but you're not getting any security updates for your phone, which makes it less secure. So, you know, in case you were worried about planned obsolescence, it's also hardware and software based. And the last one on this slide is failure to consult support for help. This is more for kind of in a business sense, but one thing I make sure to do is if someone comes to me and they think they clicked on something and that something bad happened, it's not like a shaming moment because everyone, you know, may do it at some point in their life. So please don't be afraid to say, hey, I clicked on this. Did I do something wrong? Is my computer okay? It's very important to consult with somebody for peace of mind. For example, if your sink started leaking like a gallon of water in a minute, you wouldn't just kind of close the doors and say, well, I'm going to ignore this now. I hope nothing's wrong. You would call a professional in to try and take care of it. So kind of get that same mentality with regards to being secure online. More behavior. This is less of a thing, but mistyping URLs. If you're going to Amazon.com, please make sure you're going to Amazon.com and not Amazon.cm. CM is a different country's code, so it may be a fraudulent site. Generally, sites like Amazon will buy up all of those extra domain names, so that doesn't happen. But just make sure to actually go where you're trying to go. Another attack, and this is generally more for government agencies, is don't plug in a USB that you find in the parking lot. That can be used. It's less utilized now, but it can be used for installing malware. Whenever you plug in a USB, it can be set to auto do things, auto run a lot of applications, so it can automatically infect your system without you knowing. And the last one, and possibly the most important, is don't click on stuff. So I'll show you an example later, but basically, if you're going to click on a link, make sure to hover over the link, and it will tell you where that link is going to take you. If someone says, hey, check out this awesome product on Amazon, you hover that link, and you don't see Amazon.com anywhere in that link, then it's a bad link and you shouldn't click it. So likewise, if someone sends you a document, but you're not expecting a document from that person or you don't know that person, don't click on it. These are some questions that were asked leading up to this class. So before I answer them or talk about them, does anyone have any questions about what we've talked about so far?
What does it mean to hover over the link?
Did you hear that, Tim? The question was, yeah, what does it mean to hover?
So this is going to be incredibly tiny on your screen, but you see how this is a different color and it's underlined? That means it's a link. And if you stare very intently at the bottom left-hand corner of this screen, you should see something pop up. I mean, I'm just going over and off of it just to make it kind of blink a little bit. But basically on the very bottom left, as soon as I hover, it will give me the full address of where you're going to click.
So you're going to reddit.com for this link, right?
So that's
Yeah.
just
So that means put your cursor over the link, but don't click on it.
Right.
correct.
exactly.
And
Yep,
then-
hover.
Yeah, the address will pop up at some point, somewhere on the screen, and you'll be able to know exactly where you're going.
I have one other question. So for forgetting to log off, is that true for if you're at home and you're on a secure Wi-Fi at home? Should you log off every day?
It's far less important. The only reason to do that is if you don't trust your spouse.
No worries there.
One more question.
Tim, you've mentioned Apple, or you mentioned Macs and Windows. What about Chromebooks?
Chromebooks are more secure in general.
Okay,
And Chromebooks are more secure partially because they're a smaller portion of the total number of computers.
okay.
So it's less advantageous and people make less money developing software specifically against them. The other reason is because whenever you restart your Chromebook, it essentially wipes itself. So it wouldn't do someone much good to put something on there
Mhm.
malicious, because as soon as you restart it, and restarting a Chromebook takes like what, 10 seconds, it'll get rid of the bad thing.
So are there any questions on our Zoom participants, from our Zoom participants? Okay, keep going, Tim.
Perfect. The first one, and we do get this a lot, is should I unsubscribe? So what this is referencing is you get an email from a website or a news source, and you just don't want to get those emails anymore. Should you hit the unsubscribe button at the bottom of the email, or should you just block them and mark them as spam? Companies would like me to say hit unsubscribe. Security professionals would like me to say block it. So basically what happens is, the way I do it is, if I get an email from, for example, the New York Times, and I know that the New York Times, in the past, I wanted them to send me stuff, but I no longer want them to send me stuff, I will hit the unsubscribe button. If I get an email from something I did not sign up for or don't know what it is, I will block it. This is because as soon as you hit unsubscribe, not only could it be a link for something other than unsubscribe, it could be a download link, for example. But as soon as you hit that link, no matter what, it will send a response back saying a couple things. It will say, hey, this person clicked on this link, which basically tells them, hey, this person is active. This is an active account. And then you can be put in the Rolodex of other companies, and they will then send you spam. So the answer is, for companies that you want to be nice to, hit unsubscribe. For companies that you're not sure what they are, just hit block and spam.
I have a question.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, I see where you, at the bottom of an email where it says, do you want to unsubscribe? But I don't see anything that says, do you want to block? Where do you go to block? I mean, there's no choice for that.
So if I just go to, let's see, who do I
You can
not
block
like
people.
today? Oh, so here's from hp.com. All right, I don't really care about this. You can go up here, you can click on the email, and you can go to the report spam button. It depends on your email client. So click, so I can select it even without going into it, and hit the report spam button.
Okay.
Hello?
Yep.
Hello?
Oh, you got a phone call.
Hello? Hello?
Bye. Joanne, I think
Hello?
you need to put yourself on mute. You've got a phone call. Thank you. All right, let's keep our fingers crossed.
Yep, so that's the should I unsubscribe part. So I just muted her. So the next question is my phone safe? I kind of already answered that. There are malware things developed specifically for phones. But in general, if you are using a phone that gets security updates, just make sure you apply them. And again, iPhones are generally better at this than Android phones. But that's not saying Android phones are bad. That's just saying some Android phones don't get security updates. The next one I get is Wi-Fi safe? And the short answer is kind of no. So basically, if you're on Wi-Fi, that means you're on a network. And anyone else on that network, depending on the connection you have, is able to view things about your connection. So what I mean by this is if you go to the Peterborough Town Library and you get on the Wi-Fi, you are on the Wi-Fi, which is on the same network as all the other people. Now we do have layers of protection built into the library Wi-Fi, so you should feel fairly secure in using that. But if you're at some place like an airport or a Starbucks, they may not have those levels of protection. So in a theoretical instance, you could be at an airport, there could be something called free Wi-Fi and you could connect to it. And the thing is, you don't know if that free Wi-Fi is provided by the airport. You don't know if it's just me in a corner in a trench coat with my phone set to provide a Wi-Fi signal. You connect to it, and then I'm able to capture literally everything you are doing. This means if you are connecting to a Wi-Fi signal that isn't good and you log into your bank, well, congratulations. I just now know your username, your password, your bank. I know how to get into your bank now. So not to be super alarmist, but that's one of the more alarmist things I'll say. This is also one of the reasons why a lot of companies, the town included, will provide cell phones to people who are going to be traveling. This is because they can use their cell phone as a hotspot, so they don't have to interact with Wi-Fi like that. The next question is Facebook safe? The answer is no. Mary does have a nice link she can send out about how to be a little bit more secure regarding Facebook, and it kind of goes over privacy settings. One of the things I consider not safe about Facebook is kind of security questions for your accounts. So a lot of security questions are, what town did you grow up in? What street did you live on? What was your mother's maiden name? If you're on Facebook, chances are you have some of this information somewhere on your Facebook page or in a post. So if someone's targeting you, they can go to your Facebook account, which is generally, unless you follow the links Mary is going to send, generally wide open, so people can have access to all that sort of information. The last one is more of a on your own time, but it's about background checks. So you know how there's a global conspiracy to gather as much information about people as possible and then sell that. Basically, what this link in background checks will allow you to do is it's a compiled list of a lot of these companies that gather your data. By law in the US, if you ask them to remove your data, they have to. So you can go in there, ask them to remove all the data they have on you, and then you can watch as you need to do this every couple of months because they continually regather that data. So it's like opting for the no spam call list, except more depressing. But basically all these companies do have access to your data. They track it, they add it together with other people's data on you to get a really good profile. So you can opt out, but you have to continually opt out because they always keep gathering more data. Phishing and spear phishing.
We have one quick question here.
Okay.
What you mentioned using your phone as a hotspot.
Yep.
Safer than Wi-Fi. Is that true? Nobody else can like tap into your hotspot nearby, or because it's going through cell signals now?
Yeah, basically. So as long as the password on your hotspot is good, or as long as you are directly connected, aka tethered between your phone and your computer, so connected with a cable, you're much more secure than on a traditional Wi-Fi network.
So would the same be true of your phone if you're just using it as a phone to contact your bank, for instance?
Yeah.
So it's better to, if you have to contact your bank, it's better to use your phone than your computer in an airport or someplace.
Yeah, I mean, I would kind of, I've lived my life away from technology as much as possible in public. So my preferred way to do it is basically I haven't really had a banking emergency to the extent that I need to do anything when I'm on the road. So I like to just do all of my banking at home. But yeah, cell phone would be a little bit more secure. Yeah. Also, if you use the app, so like if you are, a TD Bank customer, use the TD Bank app. That's generally more secure than going to, tdbank.com on your phone.
Oh, yeah, one more question.
In a public Wi-Fi setting, are they able to access not only the website that you are currently using, but can they access other information that's embedded in your phone?
Theoretically, yeah. Yep. So basically, you know how people talk about when you're connecting to a website, make sure that that website is using SSL, or make sure that website is secure. Theoretically, if you're on a connection like that, someone who's on the same network will be able to tell that you're going to that website, but they won't be able to read any of the information between you and the website. The real issue is if the wireless network isn't properly set up, which could provide them with more data than just that.
Right, thank you. I
Yep.
think.
I'm very happy to scare all of you. All right, phishing and spear phishing, we're kind of going to blast through this, but basically there is a distinction between the type of emails you get for phishing versus spear phishing. Phishing is a general, a spammer will send out 1 million emails and they'll get 1,000 responses. Spear phishing is, I want to target this particular organization or this particular person. So spear phishing will be more precise. They will kind of try to get, the correct letterhead for a document and send it. That way it's a little more realistic than just, Bob from accounting at a different company saying, hey, you need to click on this W-2. It'll be very specific and targeted. It will have less misspellings. It will have proper grammar. It will look good. The email will be formatted well, that kind of thing. So spear phishing is just a more precise form of phishing. Here's from the company KnowBe4. If you have a business and you want to do any sort of preventative testing of your employees to see if they understand, how to not click on stuff, KnowBe4 is a great company for that. And basically what they'll also do is they kind of have a lot of accounts out there that just monitor what sort of spam they get. And then every year, every quarter, they put out a little infographic. So right now, the top 10 email categories, 25% of the time when you get spam, it will be a fake invoice, purchase order, shared files from a business. The next most would be online services, so shopping, entertainment, then human resources, so an email from HR, and on down the line. So it's just showing you like what spammers are targeting as, what are they getting the best results from. The top phishing email subjects in the United States currently it's still the COVID, something related to COVID. The next one is password check required immediately. Then vacation policy update, dress code changes, not sure about that one, and acknowledge your appraisal, not really sure about that one. But basically all of these will have a call to action. So it's something that, one, it's on your mind, two, that it would be reasonable for you to receive, and three, it requires you to respond immediately. You know, if new requirements tracking COVID vaccinations, that's something that seems important, so you would click on that quickly. So be extra careful with emails that sound incredibly urgent, because they want you to kind of think, oh, this is urgent, and not think, maybe this isn't real. So the more dire an email is, ironically, the more suspicious you should be of it. Next, I have a quick definition of these different types of malware. In the past, this has taken up to like 40 minutes to go through them all, because there's so many nuances. So I'm just going to skip through it. And I do have written slides in the next couple that have a definition of what each of these individually is. Basically, all you need to know is these are bad, and these are what we are trying to stop. So worm, virus, Trojan, adware, spyware, spam, ransomware. This is the new hotness, rootkit, and that's that section done. All right, so these are the must-dos. Software firmware updates, we kind of went over this already, but always make sure that your computer and your phone and your toaster are all up to date regarding software and firmware. I'm not joking about the toaster, by the way. So one example of this is WannaCry ransomware. Hit more than 300,000 users in more than 150 countries. The reason why this is such a cautionary tale is, one, it caused massive havoc and caused billions of dollars lost, but the vulnerability it exploited had been patched 2 months prior to it coming out by Microsoft. So every single computer that was infected, they were infected partially because they chose not to update their computer. So if they had just updated their computer, they would have been all set. Antivirus and anti-malware software. So this is a part of a defense strategy for your computer. I oftentimes see people kind of lean too heavily onto this being the only solution they need, and then people leaning so far past it being a solution that it cripples their ability to use their computer. So if you're using an antivirus software, please use only one. A lot of antivirus softwares will find other antivirus softwares as being viruses. This is because, ironically, they are incredibly similar, because they do not want it to be easy to remove or disable that antivirus software. Because how good would it be if a piece of malware got on your computer and immediately just removed the antivirus software? So these things do things that other antivirus softwares will find and think are bad. So use one, please. This is also not sufficient alone. And by that, I mean, you still have to be careful of what you click. Basically, you don't want to be, that's kind of like brake checking a massive truck behind you. Yeah, sure, they're going to see you most of the time, but after clicking on 100 links, your antivirus software may not catch one of them, and then your computer's, has a virus on it. If you are looking for a recommendation for antivirus software, av-comparatives.org kind of runs them through. In a previous class, I kind of went over that site and kind of how you can read the results. And I'm more than willing to do that, at the end for questions, but that can take a significant portion of time. But the end result, if you just want to know, I'm not going to give you a recommendation because legally I'm not allowed to do that, but I'll tell you what I use. So for my Windows computer, I use the built-in antivirus that Microsoft supplies, called now Windows Defender. And I also have Malwarebytes on my computer. Windows Defender will theoretically, in the best case scenario, protect me from anything getting on my computer in the first place. And Malwarebytes is there for if something is on the computer, it will remove it. So I use Windows Defender and Malwarebytes. Password management. We are running a little bit behind time, so I'm not going to show you the fun videos, but essentially these are 3 quick, like 2 to 3 minute videos about how bad people can be regarding their passwords. So these are like, oops, password management foibles. So one bad thing you can do when having passwords is using short passwords. The shorter a password is, it's easier for a computer to guess. That seems fairly straightforward. The next one is storing improperly. If you're the type of person who has your passwords written down in a notebook, in your purse, or on your person, and that notebook gets stolen, you're kind of screwed, potentially. So this is like, you don't want to write it down. You also don't want to have a sticky note like attached to the monitor with the password written on it. You don't want to have it underneath the keyboard. You don't want to have it, you know, on the underside of your keyboard. Sorry, you don't want to have it in your desk. You kind of want to take care of your passwords and have them be better stored. And the best way I know how to store it is in a password manager, which we'll go over later. The next issue is never changing passwords. This is just something you should do every year or couple of years. If your password is found in a data breach and you don't change it for a very long time, that increases the chance that someone's going to get into your account. So just remember to change your password every so often. The next is making it easy to guess. I understand that easy to guess will sometimes mean easy to remember, but you don't want it to be something like mother's maiden name or your dog's name or your birthday or your favorite sports team or anything like that. There was a study done when I was in college of all the students at Pitt and their passwords, and something like 72% of them had the word Panther in it. In case you're not sure, that's the mascot of the school, which basically meant all of their passwords were already pretty easy to guess. So that's not good. The next one is using the same password. So the reason why this is bad is, let's say you have a password that you use for banking and for Target. Well, a couple of years ago, Target got hacked and all of their passwords for your accounts got leaked. So now if anyone has that information from Target and they go to your bank and they try it, they now have access to your banking information because your password is the same. So don't use the same password. The next one, I kind of will go against this in a little bit, but don't use words. This kind of goes with the easy to guess. Full words are easier to guess than like a misspelled word or a word with a number in it or something to that effect. Using dates, names, locations, you know, not good. I like this portion, so we are going to do a quick thing with this. So you can use the website haveibeenpwned.com to check to see if your account has been registered in any data breaches. This basically is a way to see if your account is mentioned anywhere in a data breach. So if you had a Target account, whenever Target got hacked, you could put in your email address and see, does my email address, because my Target account got hacked, show up in any databases online? You will then see, okay, it was a part of this breach. I need to change my password now. For me, if I am worried enough to check to see if I'm in any data breaches, that probably means that I should just change my passwords anyway. Because if I'm worried about it, you know, follow your intuition. You should probably update your passwords. The next slide is about strong passwords. So it's how to create a strong password. And the issue here is you want to make a password that is both difficult for a human to guess and a computer to guess. So I kind of have some breakdowns of how many things a computer would have to try. So if your password is just 6 letters long, that's 308 million possibilities. For a computer, that's pretty easy. That's, you know, half a second. If you go up to 8 letters with characters, so this means 8 letters with an uppercase letter and like an exclamation point, you're at some number that I'm not going to try to say, but 1,000, million, billion, trillion. What's after trillion?
Gazillion.
Yeah. So, you know, it's a lot more secure, just adding 2 more things and one of them being a character. One thing you can do is I have a link to the left-hand side. How secure is my password? And this allows you to enter a password. So I'm going to quickly pull up Notepad just so you can follow along. And we're going to try some passwords. So this password is going to be password. Very, very secure. Copy and paste. My password would be cracked instantly. That's not good. I'm going to do password 123. A computer would crack that in 1 month. To me personally, password 123 is not incredibly difficult for a human to guess, but a computer, if it was trying all of the different combinations, it would take about a month. So it kind of goes to show you if you just add something. So I'm going to add an exclamation point at the end because I'm incredibly excited about this. And I'm going to capitalize the P because I can. And this A, I'm just going to make the @ sign. This isn't, for me personally, this isn't incredibly difficult for me to remember. The only thing I really need to remember is, hey, I have a symbol in there, and it's the @ sign. You know, the rest of it's easy to guess. Password, okay, it's the first word, capital P, I got that. 123 makes sense. Exclamation point, great. So not that hard to remember. I'll copy this in, put it in here, and we're all the way at 34,000 years. So just adding one additional thing or changing one additional thing, like I'm just going to add a dash. 34,000 years, and we change that to 2 million years. So the more characters it is, I hate it when people misuse this word, but you exponentially increase the difficulty of guessing it. Is there any questions about this? About, you know, just adding like 123 exclamation point makes your passwords a weird percentage secure.
Got a question. So what if someone is tracking the security.org thing and saying, "Wow, that's a good one," you know, and then they check all the places that might use that password? Is that possible?
100%. That's a great question. So yeah, so basically that's in the same vein of if you're using the website Have I Been Pwned to check to see if you're in a data breach, all of a sudden you should change your password. You kind of use this as a way to validate your passwords, your password choices, just to see, you know, it's more of a tool for seeing, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So basically from this test, I know a 13 character password with uppercase, lowercase, number, and symbol is good. I wouldn't use this for your actual passwords. Security.org does say that it does not, you know, record any of this data. It doesn't save it. It doesn't do anything with it. But in general, I just don't trust anything you type out on a website that you don't control. I don't trust that it's going to stay just between you and that website.
Okay, thanks.
So yeah, great question.
Sites, again, the library. It's like, you need a password for the library. It's like, if someone knows what I read or what I check out, it's like, how much do I need to be concerned with my library password? Are you talking about the Wi-Fi or your library account? My account. Okay. Well, I need it to sign up for things, and I need it for purposes of me using, but it's like, if someone knows my password, it's like, I really don't think anybody cares.
Yeah, so that's a valid statement.
For like
the-
workshop at shops, or, it's like, if I don't have a credit card or financial attachment to it, it's like, if you just make me have one, it's gonna be simple, because I need to remember it. And I don't want it to be complex, and I don't care. I don't think I should care.
Yeah, so basically, the reason why you should have secure passwords for everything is it kind of puts you in a mindset of having secure passwords for everything. The other thing is sometimes in the past, people would use the same password for two different services. So if your library password is really simple, and you also have that password on something also not you feel like you don't need to have it secure, like your New York Times subscription or something like that, then that means if they have access to your library, they have access to New York Times. If they have access to the New York Times, that means they know what email address you have signed up for the New York Times. And kind of incrementally, the more information that's out there that can be accessed is bad for you. But the other reason why, at least in my case, this is kind of a moot point, is I think people should be using password managers for everything. So I, for example, only know about 5 passwords, and they're all 20 characters, random, whatever. And one of those is to log into the password manager, which stores all of my other passwords. So I don't even have to remember what my library password is, because it's just in my password manager. But yeah, the more websites that are out there with that you sign up for or use with bad passwords, the more information can be gathered. So just as a general rule, strong passwords are good. There was a link I think Mary sent out. I think it was to the Mac user group. There was a John Oliver segment, if you know who John Oliver is. And it went over kind of, see, I keep conflating it with the 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon, but it's something like you only need 10 pieces of information to figure out who someone is. So one of those pieces of information could be your library account. And then if they have that, it's one step closer to figuring out exactly who is attached to this random number, like in the ether. But that's like a 20-minute long video or something. I highly encourage it. Mary can probably send it out with this class.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you have one more question?
So how secure are the password managers?
Yeah, right, exactly.
If
We'll
you
go.
use that,
Yeah, we'll go over the different types of password managers near the end, but that's a really good question. Yep. And by near the end, I think we're almost at that section. So the next thing is a little comic. Basically, it's meant to inject some levity because I've been talking for a while, and I know my voice can put occasionally it can put some people to sleep. So here's a comic to make people smile. And it basically, in the top section, it's making a point. It's making a point that you can make a password that is very hard for you to remember. So in this example, it's Troubadour and 3 with the O as a 0, the A as a 4, capital T. And it's easy for a computer to guess, but it's difficult for you to remember. And then you can then have a password that's just 4 words. And for a computer, this is very hard to guess, and it's going to be very easy for you to remember. So I kind of like to do a combination of this. So in the bottom example, it says correct horse battery staple. You're probably going to remember it next week whenever you think about this class. But in order to make that just a little bit more secure, you can capitalize the C in correct. You can change the O in horse to a 0, and you can make an exclamation point at the end. And then that's easy for you to remember and still very difficult for a computer or someone else to guess. And you can even take this and go into that one website that we played around with to see how strong passwords are. You can take these examples in there and kind of see for yourself. This is a statement I found funny. The only secure password is the one you can't remember, and that's why password managers are cool. So password management, here is yet another way to create a password, because I want to give you as many ways as possible in order to confuse you. So this security professional says, if you want your password to be hard to guess, my advice is to take a sentence and turn it into a password. Something like this little piggy went to market might become TLP, WENT, the number 2M. So if you just remember this little piggy went to market, then you'll be able to remember kind of the shorthand version of that password. I don't like this method. I prefer the words and then change those words to numbers if you have to have a long password and you have to remember it. But you know, some people can use a Star Spangled Banner, all that fun stuff. Password management, unique and complex is key. Here's another statement from Security Blog. Human-generated passwords should cease to exist altogether, and the emphasis should be on the following: using a password manager, and that's basically all you need to remember. Basically, password managers are a way for you to have long, complex passwords that are very difficult to crack, and it also has the benefit of you not needing to remember what the password is. So this is the should do section. So basically, implement a backup strategy. You can use either the 3-2-1 rule or the locks principle. So this is more for if your phone breaks or if your computer dies. You want to have 3 copies of a piece of data in 2 different places, and one of those places is offsite. Basically what this means is if you have a backup, like a Western Digital physical backup you plug into your computer, that is absolutely fantastic and you should do that. But in the event your house burns down, you know, I'm not jinxing anybody here. In the event your house burns down, that backup is not going to do you any good because it is also destroyed. So you want to have some place where your really important data is safe, that isn't the same location as the primary source of your data, which would be your computer. The second one is lots of copies keeps stuff safe. This is just saying, you know, if you have a copy here and a copy there, and one of those copies gets destroyed, you still have a copy. I do realize we're coming up on the hour mark for this one. I do generally go about an hour and 20 minutes. Feel free to leave. Mary will give you, I mean, please don't leave, but Mary will again give you the slides and the access to the recording if you need to pick this up at a later time. Browsers. So browsers are how you connect and interact with the internet generally. And the main browsers you should be fine with. So Chrome, Firefox, Edge, Safari, those are all fine. You should feel, you know, reasonably secure using them. I don't trust Opera anymore, in case anyone used that, because it was bought by a Chinese company. In case you didn't know, any company that has any data stored in China, China has the authority and the right to access that data. So if you, again, deal with a company that has an office in China, any data that's stored there, the Chinese government has access to it. Opera was bought by a Chinese company. Ergo, all of your data when you're using Opera can be accessed by the Chinese government. Also, Internet Explorer, Edge is now what Microsoft is pushing. Edge is far more secure than Internet Explorer. So, you know, please make that switch if you need to. The next thing when using browsers is please use privacy safe browser extensions. These have two benefits mainly. The first benefit is one, you're more privacy focused online. And the second benefit is a lot of these also block ads. So you won't see ads. You also won't see the, you know, those auto start videos, which are really annoying whenever you visit certain sites. And some examples of those are uBlock Origin. That's what I use. Other people in this class have recommended Privacy Badger and Ghostery. And then if you want to go super hardcore, you can also use script blocking extensions, such as script block or no script. Scripts are things that run whenever a website is fully loaded. Basically, what a script blocking extension will do is it will stop those from running. I generally don't recommend people use these unless you know what they do, because it can stop a lot of things you want the website to do. So for example, if there's a pop down or a drop down window, these will block the script blocking extensions will block that, and it can reduce functionality and just make you really angry because you may not remember why some things on a website aren't working. The next thing is use DuckDuckGo as a search engine. This is because, as you know, Google sells ads. That's how they make their money. So Google tracks information about you, even though that information is put into a number. So they aren't tracking you by your name. They're still tracking you. And again, you only need, 10 bits of information to figure out who someone is. You can watch the John Oliver segment on that. But DuckDuckGo doesn't track you at all. So you're not going to be added to that pool of data. The other benefit of using DuckDuckGo, and you can definitely figure this out around election time, is Google, the more you click on, so say you're a Democrat and you search for a news article around election time, and you click on an article and you read it from a Democratic source, you click on another article and you read it from a Democratic source, Google will learn, hey, this person is a Democrat, we're just going to give them Democrat stuff, or left-leaning stuff to look at. So you will never see what someone who's a Republican, you won't see the same articles they do. So it will kind of silo you into a certain segment because they know that that drives interaction. And generally those will put you towards more inflammatory news on both sides. So by using something like DuckDuckGo, you'll also see that your search results weirdly are different. On the opposite side of that, Google, kind of knows what you like to click on, so it's more likely to give you that stuff. So if you like that aspect of it, then Google's perfectly acceptable. But DuckDuckGo is a little more, doesn't care who you are, what you've clicked on in the past. It's just going to give you a generic search result.
So Tim, we have a question.
Yep.
Okay, I use Firefox, and for search I use DuckDuckGo, and sometimes I get into a situation where I'm in the middle of something and it says you're using an ad blocker and you need to turn it off in order for us to continue into what you want to find out. And so if I go into like Firefox and turn it off in that particular instance, does it turn it off for that anytime I use that applicant or whatever it is I'm using, that website, or does it just turn it off for that one time?
It depends how you turn it off. There is an option to do both of those things. There's an option to turn it off one time. There's also an option to turn it off for a given site. So it depends on the option that's selected.
Okay, so where would you find that? I'm looking in Firefox here.
It also depends on what you're using for ad block, but we can go over that at the end.
Okay, okay.
So section 3, nice to do. This is generally where I bash you over the head with password manager stuff for an extended period of time. And a password manager is just a application or a piece of technology that manages your password for you. It's kind of in the name, and it makes it so that you only have to remember the password to get into the password manager, and all of the other passwords are taken care of. There are a couple of different types. You're probably, if you're new to this, you're probably the most familiar with browser-based. So for example, if you're using Chrome and you type in a password on a website, it will say, hey, do you want us to save this password? So that would be an example of a browser-based system. Chrome has it, Firefox has it, Apple has it. For Apple, it's their Keychain. And in general, I consider these, with the exception of Apple Keychain, to be a little less secure than the other types. I'm not saying that you shouldn't use them because they're better than nothing, but at least for the Apple one, Apple doesn't sell any of your data. They don't really care who you visit, what site you go to, and they kind of built Apple Keychain over years to be privacy centric, whereas Chrome and Firefox built them to be convenient and then to be privacy and security centric. Cloud-based, you have a lot of options. So the reason why you would go with cloud-based is because you log into a device and you have access to your password database. It doesn't really care what device you're on. You can go, buy a brand new computer, and all of a sudden, all of your passwords are there. Examples of this are Dashlane, LastPass, 1Password, and Bitwarden. The next section is desktop. So these are password managers that exist solely on your desktop. These are the strongest ones because there is no cloud-based anything unless you set it up for Bitwarden. So the benefit is that your password is nowhere online, even though it's securely stored, even though it's behind firewalls, even though it's encrypted. Your passwords are not online anywhere, they are on your computer. So the chance of them being hacked into is incredibly low. The last section is don't bother with this. If you haven't already heard of these, don't use them. They're incredibly easy to lose. Is a portable or a hardware password manager. And basically these are USB sticks that you keep on your person. They will either use a password from you. So you'll plug in this USB stick into a computer, you'll type in your password, and then you'll have access to your passwords. Or it'll be something like a thumbprint. So basically you plug it in, you hold your thumb on it, and then it will open up the password manager. The reason I don't like these is because for me personally, USB sticks are something I lose often. So I just don't want all my passwords on this stick that I may or may not have with me tomorrow.
I have another question.
Yep.
I've been using RoboForm for probably a year and a half or so, or maybe more. Do you know anything about RoboForm?
Yep, RoboForm would be in the cloud-based password section. Yep, it's a good one.
It's worked fine for me, so good.
Yeah.
Okay.
A lot of these are very similar, and it kind of occasionally will come down to price. For example, some of the cloud-based ones will allow you to, one of the benefits of them is if you have a family, is you can kind of have a family keychain or KeyPass entry password manager. And what I mean by that is you can have your passwords and then someone else in your family can be using the same password manager and have their passwords, but you can also share passwords. So they'll have access to some of yours if you want them to. So for example, if you're the person who's in charge of Netflix and Hulu, you'll create those entries and then you can share them with other people in your family. And then if you update the password, it will also be updated in the password manager. So then they would also have access to the updated password. These are also very useful for businesses that want a little bit more security. You can kind of, so for example, if the library had one of these, a cloud-based one, I could set it up, I could manage it, and then we could set, who in the library has access to what passwords. So all the people who are in the library don't have to remember any of these passwords. They just have to go to the password manager, the password database, and then they will have access to the ones that they need to. It's more useful in a business sense, but I've definitely seen it where it's very useful for families. It's also useful for the unfortunate aspect of life, so estate planning. If you are, an increasing amount of us have a lot of our lives online. And I know when my grandmother died, it was a massive, I mean, it was sad, right? But it was a massive pain because of the steps I had to go through, or my family had to go through, to gain access to those accounts. So if you have a password manager as part of your estate planning, it'll be very useful to gain access to all the accounts, online banking, social media, email. You'll have access to all that stuff in order to kind of make that one less headache when that happens.
So if if you want somebody to be able, when you die, to get your stuff, you have to include them in your password manager then.
You don't necessarily have to include them in your password manager. You just have to have your password for your password manager in a safe location. There are, I know it's kind of like ironic me telling you to write that password down, but there are services where you can kind of get a metal plate, and you can get kind of like whenever you drive by a church or like a McDonald's, where they have that sign where they slide in letters to make words. You can get like one of those. It'll be like a 1 inch by 4 inch thing. You just, push the metal letters and numbers in there, close that up, and then store it in a safe. And that's one way, so even if it's set on fire, you'll still have access to that. I know that's a bit extreme.
I've heard of them.
But yeah, it just makes things easier. So password manager, obviously I'm going to recommend the most secure option, which is KeePass. KeePass is something that is only stored on your device. So it has no online interactivity whatsoever, which also means it's a pain if I am somewhere where I don't have access to my computer, because I then have no access to my passwords. I have chosen to live this way. You do not have to follow my footsteps. Online password managers, so cloud-based ones, are a lot easier to manage. For cloud-based ones, the one I personally like recommending, but again, I don't recommend things because of some weird liability thing. If I were to tell my parents, hypothetical situation, to get a password manager, I would tell them to use Bitwarden. This is because Bitwarden is free for personal use. And then if you want to have a family style setup on it, then you can start paying in line with, Dashlane, LastPass, and 1Password. But Bitwarden, you can choose to have it online. You can choose to have it just on your computer. So I find it convenient like that. The other thing about password managers is they will have applications that you can install on your phone. So you'll have access to your passwords on your phone. So again, you only need to remember that one password, and you don't need to remember multiple different passwords if you use a password manager. I know we do have a class that we've done just on password managers in the past. So if you want more information about that, Mary and I can probably scrounge up that slide deck and send that out as well.
We have 2 questions in the room.
I want to point out that what you said about Bitwarden is also true of 1Password. There's a free option that you can use and otherwise if you choose it. And it'll work on
Yep.
on any of your devices. If it's a free program, it'll work on 2 devices. If you pay, then you can use more devices.
Yeah, most of the cloud-based ones will have free versions to kind of make it easy for you to get involved with it. Some of them, as you mentioned, some of them will have more stringent free aspects. So, you know, they'll limit the number of computers you can have it on, that kind of thing. But definitely my most important takeaway regarding password managers is to just try it, see how it feels. If you have any issue with it, feel free to come by on Wednesday and we can go over it. I primarily use Bitwarden and KeyPass, but they're all fairly similar. So the learning curve isn't incredibly different.
We have one more question, Joe.
My question's probably annoying. Going back
We're
to
at the point where points.
Going back to earlier, very early when we started the meeting, accessing, public Wi-Fi in the airport. If you log into your cloud-based Bitwarden, are you opening up your entire box to everyone? Or how does that work? If you're
Yeah,
in a
so
public place, typing in your very, very complex number into a service, isn't that out there?
yeah, so great question. If you're using a cloud-based thing, generally, you have so I forgot to mention, but all of these have browser extensions, which essentially means that as soon as if you choose to, as soon as you log into your computer and you open up your browser, you'll have access to the extension which has your passwords. So basically what that means is there's a secure connection from the extension to their server that is incredibly difficult for an attacker to gain access to. It's secured, with a lot of numbered encryption. It's like 256 or something like that. And that's one of those, it can get hacked in a trillion years kind of thing. Unless computers get faster. But basically you should feel very secure with a password manager because the main thing is you're not going to be copying, you're not going to be typing passwords in. All the passwords are kind of obfuscated, so you don't interact with it. Whenever you go to a website, like if you go to Macy's, I don't know why Macy's is always my go-to in this, but if you go to Macy's, your password manager will pop up in the top right-hand corner and say, hey, you have a login for this site. Do you want to use it? So basically in no way are you typing in this password. You're not interacting with this password. The password is just magically poof. It's there. You're not even copying it. So that's one way that it's, more secure than typing it in. I'm glad I put the fear of God into the Wi-Fi discussion. It's not as dire as I made it out to be. It's definitely something you should be more secure, aware about in places like airports, but generally places like coffee shops. They're not, maliciously bad about their Wi-Fi. The issue is if you connect to a network that isn't necessarily the official coffee shop's one, or if you have settings on your computer that make it discoverable on any network it connects to, that kind of will open you up to being on the same network as other people when you're using something like a Wi-Fi signal.
And Tim, we have one more question.
On software updates. And I normally see software updates when I go to shutdown, it says you have a software update. Update and shutdown, but are you also including like updating from Windows 10 to Windows 11? Would that be a software update that we should? Because now I'm getting a lot of messages up. You should update to Windows 11. I think we talked about some of those updates in another class. But
Yeah.
Is updating to Windows 11 another software update that you shouldn't do?
So that is a great question. The answer to that is October 14th, 2025. So basically Windows is going to support, or Microsoft is going to support Windows 10 via things like security updates until October 14th, 2025. The last time they had a date like this, they then pushed it back like an additional 5 years. So take that with a grain of salt. But if you want to, you can make the change to Windows 11. But on a security standpoint, you don't have to, because Windows 10 is still going to be getting all those security updates for a long time.
Okay, thank you.
What's the next question? Will Windows 11 ever come out?
Well, upgrade is when you go from 10 to 11 to whatever, and update is what you should always do. Whatever system you're on, you should always update.
Tim, you're still with us?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Good check.
Yeah, I'm here all day. So any questions people have? I remember someone had a question and I said we would get to it. I completely forget if I actually answered that question or not. I think it was about password managers. But in case you're still hanging with us and just thinking of questions, here's how you install password manager browser extension. I already have it installed. Manage extension. Remove. So if I go to Bitwarden extension, I'm using the browser called Brave. The browser is based on Chrome. So that means I have access to all of the Chrome extensions. So if I go to the Chrome web store, you can see in the top left-hand corner that it has a little lock icon. That means this website is secure. I can then click on it and see, various things about how secure it is. Let's see if I can. I don't know if that makes this any larger.
Yeah,
It's much better.
yeah.
But if I go to the lock icon, I can see that, the site settings connection is secure. That's what you want to see, is the lock icon. I can then click add to Brave. It will then ask me if I want to add the extension. I hit add. And then all of a sudden it will install. I will pin it so you can see it. So this is the icon. I know it's small for Bitwarden. If I go to a website, I'm not signed into Bitwarden right now, but if I go to a website that has a password, the icon will turn blue. I will then click on the icon. It will autofill the information for me.
That's great. So I use for my phone, my Apple phone, I use their password.
Keychain.
Yep.
Yeah, Keychain. And you said that that's more safe than the other ones. Is it still not safe enough that you think it would be wise to have, something more robust?
The reason why I would say I would recommend something other than it is only in the instance that you have non-Apple devices. If you live an Apple-centered lifestyle, so you're trying to keep the doctor away, I don't really have a good reason to use something other than the Apple keychain.
Yeah, I have all Apple.
Yep. So, and the Apple keychain, I unreservedly and probably incorrectly trust Apple with pretty much anything they do. They're constantly at, forefront, or at least they say they are at the forefront of securing your data. It's something that I haven't seen any major breaches about. So yeah, Apple keychain, I use it. I think it's It's a very, very good, nice built-in tool that I really enjoy because I get another Apple device and it's there. You know, I don't even have to go through the process that you have to go through with the other password managers of then putting that password manager on your device and syncing it up. It's going to always be prevalent. So yeah, Apple Keychain, good.
Eric?
Yeah.
Tim, you mentioned that you use Microsoft Defender. Is there an equivalent for the Apple iOS?
Yeah, I don't think Apple has a name for it. But yeah, Apple has its own. It is that thing. I don't know if you've ever tried, but if you've ever tried to download a application that's not from the Apple Store, a window will pop up and say, "Hey, this is not from the Apple Store. We're going to run a check on it and install it." Yeah, Apple has its own built-in thing just like that. If you want something additional to that, there are vendors who have antivirus stuff for Apple. But again, I weirdly trust Apple's built-in tools for that. But you can definitely get something like Symantec or McAfee or I forget the one that I like. Byte. Yeah. But yeah, they're all there.
Tim, you've given us an awful lot to think about. Our heads are hurting.
Yes.
Good.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, one more question.
When you get a phishing email, we all, I think, accept the notion that it's okay to open the email so long as you don't click on the link. Is that true? It's okay to always open the email without clicking on the link?
Well, there's nothing more than I like to do than scare everyone in this class. So the answer to that is kinda. So when you open up a link, let's see if I can find one. Promotions, there we go. Let's just go with drop. So I just opened up this email. Gmail is satisfied enough with the sender of the email, drop.com, that they think that this is not a malicious email. So before the email even gets to you, it is run through various firewalls and it's checked to make sure if it's bad or not. But you see how this email has images? As soon as one of these images load, that's information that was loaded on my computer. It's temporary information, but it was still loaded. So if you open up an email and an image pops up, that means something was loaded, which means that that image could have something embedded in it, which isn't what you want. So the answer is technically no, but if you have been using email for a while, you've definitely noticed that some emails you get will have a message at the top and it will say something like, "This sender isn't in your safe senders list. Click here to enable images." Something to that effect, and the email will have no pictures. So if that happens, then basically the images didn't load and you're good. So I would say in 99% of cases, opening an email will not do anything bad, primarily because if something bad were to happen, the email companies kind of scan for malicious stuff like that. But there's always a chance that one gets through. So yes and no. I did just want to, before I forget, I did just want to show, because Macy's is my absolute favorite one to do this on. I went to Macy's. I'm going to get my own style. And in the top right, Bitwarden is now blue, which means that there is a password on this site that Bitwarden could add.
Right.
So it would allow me just to sign in using Bitwarden. So
Oh, I see.
just in case you were wondering about that aspect of it, it does turn blue.
I've got a question about Gmail versus Outlook. Is Outlook a secure, relatively secure, app if you're using it with the app?
So are you referencing, just to clarify for me, when you're talking about Outlook, are you talking about the Microsoft email associated with Outlook, or are you talking about Outlook, just the application?
I don't know. I'm thinking about email.
So Outlook is the name of a application Microsoft offers that is an email kind of manager. But there are also Outlook email accounts that you can have. So for example, you can add your Gmail account to Outlook and use your Gmail in the Outlook application. I mean, in general, the answer to your question is Microsoft is secure. They have a vested interest. They have massive business partners, so their email is secure. About as secure as they can reasonably make it. Stuff still gets through, obviously, if you've ever Googled the town of Peterborough in the last year. And Gmail, owned by Google, is also secure for the most part. So putting your Gmail address in Outlook doesn't really give you any additional protection. I don't know if that's the direction that question was going, but
No, I mean, I just use Outlook mostly just because I'm more familiar with it. And there's a lot of people I know that are on Gmail, and I was just wondering, is one more secure than the other? And it sounds like they're kind of equal.
it's like 6 of one, half dozen of the other. On any given day, I'm sure one will be more secure than the other, but it probably averages out. I feel very secure. I use both of them, so I feel very secure with both. It's when you use that Comcast mail or that AOL or Yahoo or
Yeah, I have
some
Yahoo.
other site.
Should
I don't trust those as much.
Should I get off of Yahoo after all this time?
I mean, I don't want to like uproot anyone's life because of my preferences. So if you don't have an issue with Yahoo, I'd say it's totally fine and acceptable to keep using it. But I would start migrating a little bit over to something like Gmail. But that's also personal preference. Gmail, in my opinion, has more security and it has more life to it. Gmail is not going away anytime soon. Yahoo has made some bad financial decisions.
Yeah.
And they were bought by Verizon a while ago. So I don't really know what the long-term life of that product is.
So to migrate over, I just don't want to get in a situation where I don't know which to look at, I feel like I should do it completely or not at all.
Yeah. Yep.
Right?
So the way I've had people do this in the past
Yeah,
is they will set up a forwarding rule on their Yahoo account,
okay,
which will send it to your Gmail account plus Yahoo. So I probably didn't explain that correctly, but basically if you do, so say your email account is email@gmail.com. If you set the forwarding address on your Yahoo to email plus Yahoo at gmail.com, this will basically mark in your Gmail that all of this mail is coming from Yahoo because of that plus Yahoo. You can write plus anything.
okay, so I'm forwarding it to email plus. Wait, it just disappeared on me.
He was just using that as an
Sorry, I'm just,
Okay,
And this could be something that you come in on Wednesday with your computer and Tim can sort of talk you through
Yeah.
it.
Okay.
I think it's plus. But I also don't want to lie to you.
Okay.
But basically it may actually be period. But basically anything after some character, I thought it was plus, it may not be plus, will let you write anything. So if you want to get like super hardcore about it and learn what companies are giving away your email address, if you sign up for something like Macy's, you can type in the where it asks you for your email, you can write your email, dot Macy's@gmail.com. And then if you get an email from, a different website and it's at this email address, that Macy's gave away your stuff. But basically, the long and
Okay,
short
if
of
I
it would
come on
be,
Wednesday, will you be able to kind of help me through this?
Yeah, yep.
Okay, that would be good, that would be good.
We also had a question about Apple Mail Manager. Yeah, Apple Mail Manager is perfectly fine. You can add your Office 365 account to it. You can add your Gmail account to it. You can add your Comcast account to it. Apple Mail is kind of just a front end manager, like the Outlook application. So yep, if you prefer viewing your email in that format, definitely totally acceptable.
Well, Tim, we can't thank you enough for all of this. Oh, wait, one more question.
If you're using an Apple device, would you say that it's reasonably sufficient to rely for security on the built-in Apple devices, or is it more essential to use an external antiviral like a Mcafee?
As if you want to be more secure, you can always use an additional layer of security. Apple, as long as you're not going absolutely crazy, the built-in security is fine. The thing I like to point out is what the first Apple virus I ever saw on a computer, the person had to hit, I think it was something like 5 OKs, and they had to enter their password in twice
Oh,
to install the malware on their computer. Like they had to go through a process for Apple's built-in software to basically be like, all right, you absolutely want this, so we're going to give it to you, kind of thing. So historically, Apple's been pretty good in that aspect.
okay, that process only happens once, right? I mean, you don't have to, every time you want to use it yet.
Well, no, I was saying the only time I ever saw an Apple, a virus get on an Apple computer, the person had to basically tell Apple
Oh,
5 different times, yes, I want this on my computer, because Apple kept saying, we don't think you should have it, but if you really want it, we'll let you.
Are you really sure?
Well, thank you, Tim. You've done above and beyond, so really appreciate it. I'm going to stop the recording. I will send this out to everyone later on this week. So thank you.